Hey everyone, Peter Mancuso here. A quick warning, this episode contains brief discussions of sexual violence and assault inherent in the Killing Joke storyline. We don't dwell on it for too long, but we just wanted to give you all a heads up. Alright, time for the show. You're listening to the New Artist Workshop.
Start making decisions based on emotions, of which he has zero, then I think we've got a problem.
And they say the gay scene is complicated. What?
Hello and welcome back to your favorite podcast. Now that's what I call a franchise. I'm Peter Mancuso.
And I'm Viviana Metzger, and this is the show where Peter and I pick a film franchise and go through every single installment, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I'm noticing in my script, I've noticed it every time that
breaking script.
Sure. In the script it says ugly. It's a comma, not a period.
Yeah.
But I just haven't fixed it in the template. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and to be clear, we're defining a franchise. It's been bugging me.
Well, if you time it right, then it could be a continuum of the sentence.
That's a run-on sentence.
However, it would be a run-on sentence. However, you don't do that, so it is awkward.
Well, it doesn't really matter how you define...
Grammatically and auditorily.
It doesn't matter how you define a run-on sentence, because we're defining a franchise as a series of films with at least 4 entries. So, Viviana, what are we talking about tonight? I just switched it up. Even though most of these we record at night, I've been saying tonight, you're really getting a peek behind the curtain here, folks. Okay, so what are we talking about?
You give them a peek every day.
Oh.
You
at a certain point, there's no curtain.
You show them the bones. They know everything. It's like riding, what is it, Space Mountain with the lights on.
Okay, now you've been to Disney World, you think you know all the stuff.
No, I don't think I know all the stuff. I've heard people say.
All the good stuff.
Anywho, right. So today we are talking about the 2016 film Batman: The Killing Joke. And this is your one and only spoiler warning, so if you haven't watched the movie, do that before listening to this episode.
Okay. Why don't you give us that sweet letterbox blurb?
Oh, yes. Me. I read this.
Yes!
Don't shout.
Oh, sorry.
Letterbox blurb.
They really should give us, like a sponsorship. The amount of times we plug Letterbox. For Letterbox!
Oh, Letterbox.
The amount of times we say the word Letterbox on the show.
That's
free advertising.
That's because you're a slut. You're a Letterbox
I am a Letterbox slut. It's like the best website. That and Wikipedia are the only 2 good things to have come out of the internet.
Sir.
And also Tinder, because then you and I met.
Is that internet-based? It's app-based.
Yeah, but it's using the internet, isn't it?
Could you go to Tinder online?
No, I don't think there's a website.
It's not like Spotify?
Just because it's an app doesn't mean it doesn't use the internet. They're not mutually exclusive. The app, when you open up Google Chrome on your computer, that's an app. It's an application.
Well, yeah, but that's Google. So
just read the blurb. We're losing.
You're the one talking.
I can see the real-time listenership. It's dropping rapidly. Bring them back.
Oh my God! You keep interrupting me.
Oh,
anyways, here is the blurb.
The non-copyright blurb.
Here's the sponsorship here blurb. As Batman hunts for the escaped Joker, the clown prince of crime attacks the Gordon family to prove a diabolical point, mirroring his own fall into madness.
Exquisite. Or as Ken would say in the Barbie movie, sublime!
Sublime!
So here's some basic info about this movie. Lots of interesting stuff to get into with this one. Very controversial. But we'll get there. I'm just so excited to talk about this.
I hope you have something to say, because I am at a loss.
Okay. Hold on. This is the same reaction you had after we watched The Dark Knight Returns anime films. And you were like, honestly, though, kind of one of my favorite ones we've watched. So I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think about what you think until we talk about it.
I was deeply disturbed. Anywho, here's Sam again.
Yeah, so it was directed by Sam Liu, who co-directed Batman Year One.
What did you say?
Well, Sam Liu, like hey Liu! It was written by Brian Azzarello, who was a DC Comics writer. He wrote one of the segments in Gotham Knight, that animated film that takes place in Batman Begins universe, the one Working Through Pain, which is like one of the best ones.
Yes,
if I remember correctly.
Yes, that was one of our faves.
It was produced by, though to be fair, this is very heavily drawing on the graphic novel. So I don't know. So I feel like there should be like Brian Azzarello and Alan Moore, but what have you. It was produced by Bruce Timm, Alan Burnett, and Sam Register. Timm, of course, Bruce Timm created the DCAU. Alan Burnett, we know, longtime Batman producer, and Register, I think, was a producer over at Warner Brothers, whose name we've seen before here.
Yes.
It was distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures and Fathom Events, because originally, I'll talk about this in the background, it was originally just going to be a straight to video, or I guess straight to DVD, whatever you want to call it, film, but like there was a lot of hype around it, because it was like a classic story from the comics, and it was like the what do you want to call them? Like the super prominent voice actors for these characters. Like it's Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill and like all these people. So I guess they released it in theaters. It was released in theaters in July of 2016. It was made for a budget of about $4 million and it grossed about $4 million. But again, since it was meant to be a direct-to-video movie...
No loss, no gain!
Well, I mean, but it was a gain because then they presumably sold the DVDs after, which was always the plan. So if anything, this was just $4 extra million.
It was just for fun.
Yeah, an extra $4 million. So neither of us had seen this before. We watched it for the show. Yeah. But as with most of these, I had known about this. Because
like
it is
the comic
famous.
Book?
Well, the comic, but also this film. Because I remember when it came out, and people being really excited for it. Like, oh my god, an R-rated animated adaptation of The Killing Joke with Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy, and it's going to be released in theaters. This is so exciting.
You must be a nerd. I did not hear anything about this movie.
No, when I say people were talking about it, I'm talking people who like give a shit about this stuff. You know what I mean? Like fans of Batman or superhero. Yeah, no, this wasn't a front page story. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it was. I just remember hearing a lot of hubbub, excitement for it, and then a lot of dunking on it afterwards. Once people had seen it. Yeah. But you had no prior. We talked about this a little bit.
The only thing was you mentioning it like a few times, like maybe like multiple times throughout. Yeah. But other than that, no, I didn't. I didn't know anything about it.
Because the film as an adaptation, and maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse a little bit here, but like as an adaptation of a graphic novel, admittedly, I have not read, kind of like Dark Knight Returns. Yeah. From my understanding, it's like the actual, like, it's a pretty decent adaptation. Doesn't really add anything, and that's been a problem with a lot of these, where it's kind of just like... It's just straight, but then also, like, there's something about the comic book medium, like, illustration. Like, not only static illustration in general, but, like, these are, like, really well-drawn artwork, right? And then just doing it in kind of like a flatter digital animation style, like kind of drains it of like its artistry.
I think you said something like that when we were watching it. Like for certain, you were like, "Oh, this is like an iconic like."
But it looks cooler in the comic book because it's just like by nature of like.
I forgot which.
Because the art style for this, like, it can't look like a comic book because that'd be really expensive to make every frame look like that. Like. They pay artists thousands of dollars just to do like the one static image. Imagine doing 24 of those a second for like a 70-minute movie. But my point in this ramble is that, from my understanding, it's like a serviceable adaptation. But what makes the film infamous is like the prologue, the added, which again, let's table it. I just wanted to bring that up now, but that's kind of like why I knew about this, is that it was infamous because of that. Extended. Like, the problem is that's not even a prologue. It's just like literally the first act almost.
Nothing to do with anything.
There's like, if I'm really grasping at straws, like I did write some things like how maybe you could justify it, but they don't do enough of it
to connect it.
No. Yeah, like there's some kind of like I can project like thematic connections. Yeah. But they don't really do the work to like I'm kind of extrapolating. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you could make that work.
I think both thematically and time-wise.
Well,
I think she says it's only like a week or something, but it just seems like a long time. It just seems like a completely different time from what it was. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, just,
yeah.
And then like different stories and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like with what was it? Was it Year One or something like that? Where we're like, oh, no, not Year One. It's like you're expecting something and it's not what you were expecting, but it's like good, but it's like,
well, Year One, we don't say it's really Gordon Year One.
Yeah, but it's like not what, it's not what we asked for, but it's like good, but also like it's not what it was advertised as.
Yes, yeah, so, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was that for the first part, because like I thought it was pretty interesting, you know, and like we haven't seen a lot of Barbara.
This is the most focus she's gotten any of them, really.
Yeah, I mean,
unfortunately, which is unfortunate. That...
Yeah, I mean, anytime, whether she's Barbara or Batgirl or whatever, and we've never seen her as Oracle before. I don't think, right? Not
we get a little bit at the very end of
not
this.
Visually, at least. It might have been implied, right, with like Nightwing and everything. I don't know.
Oh, not Nightwing, but again, that was my first introduction to Oracle, were the Arkham video games. Yes. I can't remember if the Arkham Assault on Arkham. Remember that? If they mention Oracle, I don't remember if Oracle is. Oh, there is the part where they very subtly. Jason Todd as the Red Hood mentions, like, you know, like the people he's killed and cripple. It's like that's a nub. He doesn't say Barbara by name, but that's who.
So this is basically like, you know, the most Barbara that we get, and she's not like.
At least so far, but I don't think we get more. I think she has a sizable role in the Lego Batman movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
Or is that Catwoman? I can't remember. I thought there was one of. The point is that it's really sad that this is like the most we've gotten of her thus far. This is like the 26th movie we've watched or whatever it is. What I was gonna say is that, again, I think there are ways you can make the prologue fit more thematically, or at least just make it feel more cohesive as a piece. But again, from my understanding, like they're pretty slavish to the source material, where it's like they're not gonna touch. Like it's really just like, here's the Killing Joke as you remember it, more or less.
Just moving.
But here's this other part before it.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to like maybe making some slight changes. What's that?
That wasn't from anything, right?
The prologue?
Yeah.
From my understanding, it was very loosely inspired by, there was a Batgirl she had her own line of comics. And in comics, there's a common thing where it's like it was all in the same continuity, and it's like now modern movie audiences are having to deal with like people like, oh, it feels like homework. I have to watch this Marvel show and that thing before going to see the new Marvel. It's like comic book fans have been doing this for decades, having to like keep. But anyway, I don't think it had any plot things. It was just like that comic specifically came out only like a couple weeks before The Killing Joke. So it was supposed to be like this idea, like they wrap up Batgirl being Batgirl. I think the only similarity is that she like hangs up the cowl, figurative, so to speak. And then, so when she gets shot by the Joker, she is no longer Batgirl. Yeah. Is the idea, I guess. But do you want to hear some background? Kind of maybe flesh some things out for us here? Okay, so it's based on The Killing Joke.
Of course.
The Batman The Killing Joke is a 1988 DC Comics one-shot graphic novel. So it was only one issue.
Oh.
As opposed to The Dark Knight Returns, which was like 4, I believe, over the, of course, of how many weeks or months. And it featured the characters Batman and Joker, written by Alan Moore. Alan Moore, most famous, in my opinion, for writing Watchmen, which is probably the best graphic novel I've ever read. I don't know why I said it like I'm lying. I mean, to be fair, I haven't read many in the grand scheme of things, but most people say that's, if not the best, the most important. Again, in terms of kind of like leveling up the medium as more artistic.
Have you read a lot of manga?
No. I did read the Kingdom Hearts manga.
So just in general, not like you're more manga than like like comic books.
No. I mean, I see it all as one medium.
Yeah.
It's not really the Peanuts and the Dark Knight Returns are technically all part of the same medium, but like they have different ambitions, I guess.
Okay,
but
that's enough with the mediums.
Oh, Vivian doesn't like when I talk about different artistic mediums. films. But anyway.
Not when it goes on for hours and hours and days.
Well, it's such an interesting topic.
And days.
Don't get me started. I wasn't even going to bring it up. Now you got me all on the topic. Anyway, The Killing Joke provides an origin story for the supervillain, the Joker, loosely adapted from the 1951 story arc, The Man Behind the Red Hood. So the Joker's origins presented via flashback while simultaneously depicting his attempt to drive Jim Gordon insane and Batman's desperate attempts to stop him. The story became famous for its origin of the Joker as a tragic character, a family man and failed comedian who suffered one bad day that finally drove him insane. Alan Moore stated that he attempted to show the similarities and contrasts between Batman and the Joker. Many critics consider the graphic novel to be the definitive Joker story and one of the best Batman stories ever published, though the story's exploitative treatment of Barbara Gordon has garnered criticism. Because again, in the original, her basically only role is basically just to be like, get fridged. We've talked about getting fridged before. Along with the fridging, this is up there, people talk about as like a prime example, where it's like she really exists in the story only to be victimized to propagate like the male characters' arcs or like their stories, right? So it's not really about Barbara, it's about torturing Commissioner Gordon or Batman, right? Elements of The Killing Joke have inspired or been incorporated into other aspects of Batman media, which we kind of end up seeing in the Joaquin Phoenix Joker. He's also kind of like a failed comedian of sorts. But yeah, Alan Moore is, you know, such a visionary for comics in just the sense of his willingness to push it sucks because it's like he's willing to kind of push it into not darker necessarily, but more psychologically complicated. Yeah. Right? And you can like get that sense, not only comparing this to other Batman movies, but like literally from the prologue to the actual story. Yeah. Like, it's clear a lot of dialogue has been ripped from the comic. Like, you can feel like the language has changed. Like, the way characters talk is like another level. Yeah. In a lot of ways. But famously is like very anarchist and very anti-capitalist and like basically hates DC. So like whenever they like do adapt his work, he's like, I don't want to be on the credits. Like, I disown basically all of this stuff. Oh wow. He's a very eclectic. Look up Alan Moore. He has the longest beard in the history of beards. He is like a hermit looking man. He looks like a wizard.
He does look like a wizard.
Right. So that's The Killing Joke. In 2011, during San Diego Comic-Con, actor Mark Hamill, who wanted to quit playing the Joker at that time, stated that he would be willing to voice the Joker for an adaptation of The Killing Joke, encouraging fans to campaign for said adaptation. I don't like when celebrities do this, when it's like... What? Like, fans, like, you should campaign to get... It's like, you're Mark Hamill. Can't you call somebody to get this movie made?
No, not all the time.
Oh, anyway. In 2013, Bruce Timm also expressed a desire to create the project, saying it was only a possibility. But then by 2015, Timm announced that an animated film based on the novel was in development and slated to be released in 2016. Sam Liu would direct and Timm would execute... How should I say it?
I don't know. Just keep going.
Sam L. would direct and Timm would executive produce the film. He added that the team had to, quote, add a lot more story, end quote, for the film due to the source novel not being long enough to make a feature-length film. Though, I guess, in hindsight, you could say, like, is the solution to just add more story or just flesh out the story that's there? Yeah. And they went with the former. Maybe they should have done the latter. Or at least maybe made the former better. In April 2016, Warner Home Video confirmed that The Killing Joke would be the first film in the DC Universe animated original movies. I don't even know which one that's supposed to be.
It's fucking ridiculous.
And the first Batman film to receive an R rating from the MPAA, with Warner Brothers Animation and Warner Digital Series president Sam Register explaining, quote, from the start of production, we encouraged producer Bruce Timm and our team at Warner Brothers Animation to remain faithful to the original story, regardless of the eventual MPAA rating. We felt it was our responsibility to present our core audience, the comics-loving community, with an animated film that authentically represented the tale they know all too well. In terms of animation production, the crew admitted trying to adapt Bolland's art style, who I think was like the illustrator for it, trying to adapt his art style was challenging due to the realistic quality. Again, like that, it's kind of hard to adapt that art style into motion, in a sense, right? So what do we think?
Interesting. I don't even know. I was just disturbed. So I don't know.
But in a good way, like okay, you're disturbed, but like is the movie? Do you think the movie is trying to disturb you and it's effective at that, or it was just disturbing and you didn't like it?
I would say maybe the former. I don't know. What did you think?
Well, let's break it up into.
We can honestly do two of them, right?
Let's talk about the prologue first. Yeah. And then talk about because unfortunately, and this is the biggest pitfall of the film.
Yeah. They
are just far too disconnected.
Yeah.
And it's not just a prologue. Again, when your movie is only like 75 minutes long, and there's like a 15, 20-minute prologue that adds nothing to the core narrative.
Yeah.
It's hard to defend it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So let's just look at that as its own little short film just to start. So I guess the biggest issue with it is, or rather, I think I can kind of see
I liked
where.
it. Do you not like it?
No, I liked it. I think, like, in a vacuum, I think that's a perfectly fine story to tell. I think I think the initial like instinct to do something like this is actually not awful, because if the whole kind of issue with Barbara in the original is that she was basically just like exploited by both the Joker but also like the writers, then having a extended prologue that really focuses on her, not only is she in it a lot, but it's very much from her POV. Okay, that's kind of an interesting reevaluation of the text and trying to maybe bring it into a more modern setting in a sense. But then it still is objectifying her, because her whole thing is just about how she like has this weird like attraction to Bruce. Who's kind of like a father figure, like
he's like being very like domineering and like
very strange power dynamic.
I didn't.
Which is fine. It's not fine. It's interesting narratively, but the film never really wrestles with that bizarreness. Like they both kind of part ways, kind of like very amicably. Like I'm okay with exploring a story like this. But it doesn't really get into like the more interesting, complicated kind of sauce, so to speak, of something like this, of essentially a workplace relationship that becomes very strange.
Because I think the part that I like is like Barbara's POV and just like getting
I just kicked the table.
A different like perspective on the whole thing, you know. That's why I think I also kind of gravitate towards like Gordon's stories and things like that, just because it's like a different perspective on how things are going, right? And it's
great
not,
point.
You know? So I like that, but then eventually, like over the course of it, like it started kind of sour for me because of that weird relationship, and like I don't know, and it just like it just really kind of subjected her at some point, and then like she was just like fawning over him, and then they like she's like finally, you know, saying something about it and getting her point across or whatever and standing up for herself, and then they sleep together, and I'm like, what? Wait, doesn't that defeat the whole thing? What? Weren't you just complaining about like how he's being an asshole to you? Like, I don't know.
Well, I guess if we want to psychoanalyze this version of Barbara, right? That like
there can be
there's a weird psychosexual kind of power thing. Right? Where she feels like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like
she wants to be equal because she's doing the same things.
But I think she also kind of likes being subjugated to him. Like she wants to make him like it seems like she has daddy issues, but then like Gordon's like a great dad, right? So like
I think maybe like she likes being taken care of, right? But that doesn't mean subjecting herself and like undermining her own abilities. You see what I'm saying? Like okay, Bruce, I know Bruce has my back. Like he's not gonna, he's looking out for me, right? But we're still like a team because I also kick ass and I can, like I can hold my own, but if I'm ever in like a sticky situation, Bruce will be there to back me up. But
he makes it very clear, like we work together, but we're not equals. Yeah,
instead of that, she's like a little mini Robin or something, like kind of an underling type thing. Even though she like goes and does her own thing, I don't know.
And she even makes a point like I'm the best like pupil you've ever had.
Yeah,
essentially.
They like don't always work together, but like act like a team. I don't know. Very strange.
I think it's kind of like it's like if you work at a store.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you're not always like working with like alongside your manager.
Yeah.
But if your manager doesn't want you working in the shoe section anymore, like they're gonna say, "I don't want you." Right? Like it's kind of like that. I would.
No,
guess,
yeah.
Where it's like they work together, but it's not like they're at the hip.
Yeah.
So to speak, right?
No,
and
it's weird because like the dynamics are very real and like human. It's just like a complicated situation and weird. So it's like, what do you even say? It's like we all know it's a fucked up situation, but like we don't know how to like not do that. does that make sense?
What's a fucked up situation?
Like the weird power dynamic, right? It's like that's an uncomfortable situation.
Because she's not a kid anymore. Like she's like a full-grown adult.
Yeah.
They make sure to give her really large breasts, which I'm always, as if you're a listener of this show, I'm a big fan of in these movies when they draw.
They sleep together, so she's of age. Like it's this whole thing, right? But it's like. It's kind of like when bad stuff happens, like, I don't want to say, but it's like, I don't know, when it's like bad stuff happens, right? And you're like, oh yeah, like that bad thing happens, like, okay, like.
But I don't understand.
What? Do you know, like,
There's something you want to say, but you're not saying it because you're afraid of saying it.
I don't know.
This show is a bastion of free speech. I'm not gonna let the woke mob come after you.
No, I don't. I'm trying to think of like a thing like I don't know. It just seems like
it's a very complicated situation.
It just seems like somehow.
And then they complicate it even further with sex.
Yeah, it just seems somehow like unpreventable. So it's like
also known as inevitable.
What do you do? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like okay, like they're in this situation because it naturally grew this way, however it happened, but like now it's just uncomfortable to watch. Like what are they gonna do?
Well, I think that kind of explains why she kind of like throws in the towel by the end, where she's like,
I guess so.
I've kind of outgrown this.
Yeah.
Because what's happening now, so like this is interesting stuff, but I don't think the film does enough to like really, but like there's something to the idea of like her, like it's kind of like you know what it's like. This is gonna get very personal.
Oh my god.
This is like when I worked at the NYU Phonathon. So I worked at the NYU Phonathon.
Are you allowed
raising
to be
money.
saying this stuff?
I'm allowed to say I worked there.
Okay.
I just can't fit. But my point is that typically the people who work there are students.
Yes.
But like if you don't quit and they don't have a reason to fire you, you could just like stay.
Yes.
So like I was there like 3 years after graduation. Mm-hmm. It's not quite like this, but my point is that it's almost like you're gonna inevitably get these issues because she's outgrown the role.
Yeah.
So she's like, what? You know what? No, here's a better analogy. It's like when you go to visit. When you go home for like the holidays when you're in college, like you're not a kid anymore.
Yes.
But like you're now still like under these conditions where you're supposed to act a certain way, but like you've outgrown that.
Yes.
And you like are constantly kind of pushing against like these like kind of confines, and then the people who hold the power like just see you in that role. So the solution isn't like you need more freedom. The solution is like you're no longer like this is no longer appropriate for you to be in this situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like a way.
It's a good way to.
Right. So again, it's like it's already a complicated situation that is further complicated.
Yeah.
And not just like times 2, but to the second power, exponential, by the sex.
Yeah.
Right? Which I guess is like, again, this is all interesting character stuff if it wasn't Batman and Batgirl.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that I'm against it morally it's just very complicated.
Makes it strange. Yeah, you're like, oh.
But then they never really like explore it in a way because they also don't want to tarnish Batman.
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying is like, well, that's a good point because, you know, this is interesting stuff, but it's weird. It's kind of like when we watched the film where with Superman in it, and they weren't.
The Dark Knight Returns, one of your favorite ones.
Yes, and they weren't friends. Do you know what I'm saying? It just goes against our preconceptions. Defies our preconceptions about things. So
about these characters because they're so culturally iconic.
Yeah, so you would part of the Bat family, Batgirl, Batman.
Well, and that's why people took a lot of
so
umbrage.
Strange that there's this weird psychosexual interpersonal type of thing going on.
Workplace, essentially.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of people took issue with it. Is like non-diegetically, like the writers again kind of just making your like female character like basically her whole arc is just like being obsessed with like a guy, right?
Yeah.
But then diegetically, Batman should know better because even though he's not like maybe he's not old enough to be her father, but he's clearly much older and serves in this if not parental role, mentor role, and it's not like I don't really want to come down with like a moral judgment, but like it's inappropriate, I think is the word I would want to use. Like it's just not appropriate for the situation.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think to act on it, right? Because
she kisses him.
Yeah.
But then because then he grabs her buttocks. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's kind of inevitable in any type of situation, right? To you know, you're
this
close
weird admiration
to someone, you know, and it can kind of, you know, admiration.
This was hate sex if I've ever seen
to it. Like turning into like kind of an attraction. So like, I mean, that's just kind of human, right? But then the acting upon it is like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of irresponsible. Like, you know.
You know what it reminds me of? This is not nearly as toxic as like this situation is. But remember in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Kirsten Dunst's character like has a huge crush on like her boss who's like double her age.
Oh yes.
And then there's something to the idea of just like you like admiration.
It just happens.
mixed with the power dynamic, mixed with maybe a genuine like attraction. Like it just all becomes like this weird stew. Yeah. That just gets very complex very quickly.
Which is fine, and that's, you know, gonna happen inevitably, right? Just I don't know, biology or whatever, like something. I don't know. Just people being in close proximity create, you know, little dynamics within their head canon and whatnot, right? Yeah. And that changes over time, right? So you can be secretly in love with somebody or secretly have an arch nemesis or whatever, right? But
Viviana has many arch nemesis.
But you don't
they don't even know that they are your
No, of course, because it's the acting on it. It's the acting on it that takes it too far, and then it makes it messy, right? Actively making it messy.
Because secretly harboring resentment has always been healthy. Everyone always says that. Everyone always says, as long as you don't act on it, it's okay.
No.
As long as you just harbor it silently in your heart.
This is like people you don't have to necessarily confront, right? Mm-hmm. Or like if you did confront, it would make things awkward.
Look, it's like it's not worth taking it to that level in real life.
Yeah, they're not in a realm of intimacy of being like that personal to you. So like it's really not worth it to, you know, kind of go through such a big rigmarole and then like, you know, kind of make things awkward and whatnot. So you know.
Yeah.
And that can always change, right? It's probably like, you know, I don't know. In the springtime, you think your teacher's cute, and then, you know, in the summertime, oh, they're ugly. Like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or like Veda in My Girl, right? How she's like in love with her teacher, and she takes the poetry class for adults because she's in love with her teacher.
And then she finds out he has a wife or like a girlfriend or something.
Yeah. So like, okay, that's great, but then like, if she kissed him or something and he kissed her back or whatever, like, that's inappropriate, you know? Like,
well, at that point, it'd be a crime.
Well, it would be a crime, but also, like, do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Do you see what I'm saying?
It's like, yes, they were into it, but you also should know better.
Yeah.
Like, just because it's legal and, like, it's, like you're both consenting adults, like, you should know better because you know you hold... This is not an equitable relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
But we should also mention, which we haven't talked about, the reason that, like, the thing that creates this, like, brings the tension to the foreground is that there's this villain villain in quotes. He's just like a
what's his name? Paris France?
Franz, yeah, Paris Franz. Alan Moore would probably shoot himself if he even watched this, but I know he doesn't give a shit, so he doesn't even watch. But he, like, really takes a liking to Barbara.
Yeah.
And like a weird kind of power play thing of his own. So so it kind of comes off like Batman's like jealous almost. It was like I'm taking you off the case.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what kind of
weird.
Instigates it. And I think that also fuels her sexual attraction, where it's almost like,
oh, he cares.
Yeah, like he's being protective, like he's jealous.
Yeah.
Kinda. It's just very strange. Also, can we just talk about like the obligatory shoehorned gay best friend? Who was not as... I knew about going into this movie, but was not as cartoony as I thought it was going to be, but still was like...
Oh, what did he say? He was like...
Oh, I thought the gay scene was complicated.
What?
Which, unless I can't find a good clip of it...
What? At the end?
That's what makes it funny. It almost seems
the first
like...
part, okay, yeah, that's something someone would say, but then the... What?
You know what it is? It's like... Sometimes in anime, when they translate into English, they do like an English dub.
Yeah.
Like, because... Japanese grammar is different. Sometimes like they'll have like the mouths moving and you can't just like insert it like they'll say something and then pause and then say something else.
Oh yeah.
So you have to like add in a new thing. So I saw it once in Kingdom Hearts where it was like you think you would say the line like, let's see what you're made of, Sora, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, let's see what you're made of, Sora. Because like the animation like needed to be that way.
Yeah.
This almost seems like this where it's just like they needed him to say something, but it's not that because this is an American production in English.
What?
And I thought the gay scene was complicated. What? But anyway, here's the thing: is all of this on paper. Here's the thing: I really don't like being in the position to like be bagging on this because like there's interesting stuff here.
Yeah.
It's just by the end, like they don't tie it up well enough. Like I was kind of into it, but then like the resolution is her just being like, I think it's time for me to move on, Bruce.
And
like, you know what I mean? Like,
and that seems unfair. Like, why does she have to stop? Like, if she wants to, she can, right? But then it's like,
why can't she just be like Nightwing and do her own thing?
Yeah, or like, you know, why doesn't Bruce take a break or something? Like, why is this weird power dynamic?
Now it's
only
her,
forcing it to be her problem.
Like Batman doesn't have to change anything about his situation.
Yeah,
like, she has to. I don't know. And then there's this weird, like almost like romantic comedy thing where it's like she's calling him and he's not picking up, or like he like doesn't really want to talk after they slept together. It's like
very strange.
So I kind of laugh when the very first line of the movie is like a voiceover from Barbara being like, I know this isn't where you thought the story was going to start.
Yes.
And it's like very much referencing the fact this is like a tacked on like beginning to a story.
Yeah. At first I thought it was so silly, and then I was like, oh wait, like maybe this is, you know, like the start of the story, but it's like from Barbara's POV.
Nope.
It's just completely different.
You know, so I guess unless I think we can kind of then move into the second, or really I should say like the main course here, which is the Killing Joke. story.
Which is so strange because they set it up. They set something completely different up, and then they move into this, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? This is so on another playing field than the first part.
Different writing, different thematic ambitions, different here's the thing.
Oh my god.
So maybe
two separate things.
Maybe like a good place to go next is like kind of before we really get into the Killing Joke, talk about like how they're maybe connected or how they could have connected them, because I wrote down here in my notes like there is something very minimal, but there is something to the idea about it's a movie about Batman's relationship with people, and Barbara doesn't really fit this, but it's like someone like you could say like the Joker is the one he hates the most, and then in contrast Barbara's the one he like loves the most. Like it's about a story about Batman's deep relationships with people that are more complicated than you would think. That's a stretch.
The only connection...
That is a stretch on my part.
The only connection that I saw was that she's no longer Batgirl, and so...
She's fair game to get shot.
And so she's in her house, and Gordon is there, and so then she gets shot, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that was really the only connection I saw, because, like, literally nothing else. I mean, besides being, like... Oh, the stuff later on... Oh, I'm gonna like, throw up.
Well, I could give this again. This and The Dark Knight Returns, and then also Watchmen if you want to throw that in. But just looking at Batman stuff, like again, really pushing the envelope in terms of not only what Batman comics could be like, but just like comics.
Yeah.
Because again, like they don't pull any punches, and again, it's even worse when you like actually look at the panels. Like shoots, it's not like kind of like a cartoon shooting, like through the stomach. Blood everywhere.
Yeah.
And then he essentially like maybe I should do like trigger warning, like essentially
trigger warning, he straight up rapes her.
More or less. Like I don't
it's implied.
Or the very least sexually victimizes her. At least like basically undresses her and takes photos and forces Gordon to I don't know. Yeah. I don't really think this qualifies as a trigger warning because I didn't say actually at the beginning.
Oh, sorry.
I basically gave you like 3 seconds. So that's a Maybe I'll put one at the beginning.
Yeah.
Of this. I mean, this is the first movie we watched in our entire show, let alone season, where that's even been applicable, really.
Yeah.
Because again, it is really graphic.
It really pushed. It really pushed me. I think you know how like the one when they're in the love tunnel, right? And he like they stab each other. And
in The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, it's like that, but like times 10. It's like. Whoa, like what? Like I know he's like a bad guy, right? But there's like comic book bad guy, and then there's like child rapist down the street bad guy.
I think what you're touching on again is our like a preconceived. And I don't say this in a bad way. It's just the way it is. Yeah. Our preconceived rules that we all kind of subconsciously, agree upon.
Yeah.
When you're, so let's use a different superhero. Like, so when you're watching Spider-Man, again, you don't expect the Green Goblin to rape Mary Jane. Right?
Yeah.
Because it just goes beyond, like, the expectations of what this is.
Yeah.
But the thing about this is that, again, because this is a one-shot, which again in comics is really...
I don't give a fuck.
Can really kind of take it wherever you want in a one-shot. Like, because it's really its own kind of thing. I don't believe it's really part of any defined Batman continuity, so it can really just be its own thing using these characters, and he really, for better or for worse, if you don't like this, the way they handle Barbara in the story, non-diegetically, you have to at least give it credit for pushing the envelope of what comics, again, could, like, what kind of things it could touch or show, right? So again, it's like, you don't expect the Joker, because again, and let's compare this to something else in the Batman universe, right?
So because there's always been the duality, right, of like the silliness and then like the insanity, right? So he shows up and he's like in a fucking Hawaiian shirt, like he's like a dad on a cruise, and then like shoots her. And then, like...
they give that horrifying, like, gleam in his eye, almost, like, the way they do it, and again, this looks really cool in the the page.
Yeah.
He has like the long brimmed hat or whatever, and it kind of obscures his eyes in shadow, but there's like a weird like glimmer for his eye.
Yeah.
Right? And he just creates this really, and like that giant smile.
Yeah.
Which again, very exaggerated in illustration. Mm-hmm. It's just very unnerving. And like again, she's not just lying on the ground like, ugh, like she's like twitching, like her spinal cord has been shattered, right? Yeah. Like they take it to a level that again you don't expect. Yeah. And I think that's what makes this comic, as well as just that moment, so iconic, again, for better or worse, because it was just like it was just such a shock to the senses, I would imagine, if you're a comic book reader. And granted, I'm sure there's kind of like the way movies have ratings. Like I'm sure comics had, like, I don't think 8-year-olds were picking this up, but even for like adult comic book readers, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think 8-year-olds were picking this up in 1988. But even like more teenage or adult comic readers were even for them, again, because it's just you don't expect that. Mm-hmm. What I was going to say before you so rudely interrupted, is, again, if you want to explore the idea further about, like, the rules we bring to a story, right? Take a look at The Dark Knight, right? The Heath Ledger's Joker, which is universally agreed to be probably the most terrifying on-screen version of the Joker that we've gotten ever, right? And that movie pulls a lot from this in the idea of trying to corrupt. That the Joker's like main aim is like to try to prove that. Like, what does Batman say in The Dark Knight? Like when the people on the boat don't blow each other up, he's like, "What were you trying to prove? That everyone is deep down is as ugly as you, right?" And that's his whole thing. He's trying to corrupt Harvey Dent, right? But in this, it's Gordon, right?
It's like the one
but
day.
You never expect. But Joker, like precisely, it's like the idea of the one bad day. Where it really comes from this, right? But in The Dark Knight, you expect him to murder Rachel. You don't expect him to rape Rachel.
It's never that person.
Precisely, or just a certain level of intensity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I was
unnervingly so. Right.
I was. Yeah. My senses were shocked. I was not expecting that because silliness and insanity aside, like it was like what you were saying, it's always been outward and like people focused, right? It's never like I don't know. It's never subjugating in that way, It's never.
It's a whole other level.
What he does is never.
We expect
like
murder
that.
in movies because in America at least, we're very desensitized to violence. Mm-hmm. At least like when it comes to like almost, I don't want to say soldier violence because Joker's not a soldier, but like stabbing or getting shot, right? We don't usually, like, sexual violence is not often part of the cinematic vocabulary of villains in at least American cinema, right?
For the most part,
it's not very often, is what I'm saying. Like, right, and so when it happens,
Marlin.
It's very
Marlin,
the dad in Finding Nemo.
Oh, Marlon Brando. Didn't he do the thing with the butter?
Oh yes, but that was in real life. He didn't.
Yeah,
but I don't think in the movie he's sexually assaulting her. I don't remember. I've never seen the movie. I've seen that clip. Oh, well, how could you not? You want to see the butter?
I have not seen the clip.
But anyway, Joker is very horrifying in this.
Yeah,
he really is. Again, like Alan Moore is a very like his stories are never cheerier.
Yeah, it like made my stomach flip over. I was like, shit, what? I have no idea what he's gonna do now. Like I don't even know what to expect at this point. Like, and it just made him even more scarier. Like,
you know what? You really should read Watchmen. Because it's a great literary masterpiece. And B, so that we can then watch the HBO sequel series. But if you won't do that, you know what we should do after this? Because it's pretty early in the evening. We should watch Watchmen. The Zack Snyder adaptation of Watchmen.
What, like a movie?
Yeah.
Not the show, right?
No. The movie, which is not necessarily great to watch and then watch the HBO show, because again, the show is more of a sequel to the comic, and the movie changes some key stuff. But at least just to get a general sense of like Alan Moore's MO, like just a darker vision of the world, which is often imitated but rarely reaches like the literary and psychological complexity of something Alan Moore is able to achieve. Alan Moore also did V for Vendetta, which I'm reading, which is all about like fascism and in like a dystopian England, like in the late 90s.
Because isn't Watchmen like kind of like of the same vein as like Deadpool, like raunchier and like more violent, but like not as...
It's not funny.
Not as comedic.
No, and more than just not as comedic, just not really... I mean, there's like some funny things, but like dryly funny. But...
No, but like it's more violent and like all that stuff.
If anything, the movie is even darker than the graphic novel, just at least visually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, well, because Zack Snyder, who... We have not really talked... We've talked a little bit on this show, because Zack Snyder is the one who kind of helped... The Man of Steel, Batman v Superman. He is a good director when he's just straight adapting stuff. Because aside from some key details, Watchmen's a pretty faithful adaptation.
Okay.
It's when he's, like, doing his own stuff that he usually struggles, right? But he's talked about wanting to do, like, just a straight-up Dark Knight Returns adaptation. Yeah. But... he wasn't able to, so he put a lot of ideas from that into Batman v Superman. So it's about like an older Bruce, played by Ben Affleck, who comes back. Right. So we're getting a little off track, but my point is just Alan Moore. I feel like you can't just do this. Like Alan Moore, it's not just on paper. Like Alan Moore's skill is what makes it work. Right?
You fucked up, Alan. You fucked up.
What do you mean? What? He fucked. Oh, he is fucked up. I thought you said he fucked up. He messed something up.
He hit the nail on the head, but he did it in a fucked up way.
Well, but you know what's interesting though about someone like Alan Moore?
Oh, sorry.
I get chastised.
That was my alarm to do homework.
Homework. Your homework is to read Watchmen, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna watch anyway. What I was gonna say is that. The thing, though, about Alan Moore is that usually the darkest elements of his stories are there to be critiqued, right? So something in Watchmen that when you watch, there's a character in it who people kind of like. It's kind of like the Archie Bunker, Tony Soprano problem, where, like, people watch it and he's meant to be a parody of those kind of people, but then people, like...
Oh, they love
like them. Yeah, like, unironically like them. There are characters in Watchmen that are like that, where it's like, no, like, they're awful.
Yeah.
Like, Alan Moore is, like, on record being like, you shouldn't like this character. You should like them in the sense that they're an interesting character.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't like them if they were real.
Yeah.
They're awful, right? So I think that's what kind of saves him in the sense that, like, we're never meant to like the Joker or what he does or anything, right? So let's talk about the origin.
Which is interesting, though. Because then there is some empathy towards him with the flashbacks.
With the origin, well, that was perfect because that was. It's okay you're interrupting me because that was literally what I was about to bring up. The origin story, right? So how do we feel about the origin story? Not even on two fronts, because there is the origin story itself, like as like a origin story, but also the fact that he's given an origin story at all. Right? Because we've talked a lot about. Most times it's better when he's a little more mysterious.
Yeah, I know that you like, and you have said before that you like it when he is kind of like out of the blue type of thing.
Almost like a force of nature. Like he's something so unfathomably evil.
Yeah.
But that being said, so I was kind of trepidatious going into this. I kind of liked it.
I liked it.
Not necessarily because of the specific story details, but because it serves Alan Moore's theme specifically, which is the idea that all it takes is one bad day for a normal person to go crazy.
Yeah.
And to that end, it's great because it shows that.
Yeah.
And we get a sense, because it's not even like he's like a great guy, he's just like a normal dude who has real things that you can sympathize with, but also like he's not like saving cats from trees and walking all like he's just like a normal dude who's struggling, right? But then his wife died. What did they say? It was like an accident or something? I forget what they said. It was like
a bottle warmer or something.
It was like a 1 in a million accident.
It was, like a spark or fire with the bottle. I don't know.
Well, this ties into what we had talked about with the Red Hood, right? So I remember when we watched that movie, you didn't realize that was meant to be the Joker, the original.
I didn't realize.
But that's like the origin, right?
That's has never been anything that I have heard about or known about.
No, I didn't know that either.
Character, but apparently, canonically, like
I didn't know that until we watched the Red Hood. When we watched that movie,
changes somehow.
And again, the resulting movie is not as dark as its inspirations, but it's not an accident that you get the Tim Burton Batman in 1989 after The Dark Knight Returns, the graphic novel in 86, and this in 88. Like, look again, those two stories, this and that, show not just comics to be darker, but Batman as a character, and therefore, like, if we're gonna make a movie, let's move away from the Adam West type stuff. And make it a little bit darker. In 2023, those movies seem ridiculously silly and lighthearted. But for the time, you don't probably get that level of Tim Burton darkness, quote unquote, without The Dark Knight Returns and this graphic novel, right?
But
hi.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's basically everything. I have a couple more things, but
well, I think I did like that. Both just in general learning about him, but then also it makes it more real, right? So like when he is a force of nature, it's a little bit more comic booky, but like because Bruce's origins and like being is very,
it's very down to earth, so it's weird that there's no explanation for how he became who he is.
Yeah, but now there is, and so it's like, oh, okay, like, it's not just some random crazy dude who showed up one day, and then this very depressed man is just now fighting him, right? It's like they're kind of like, well, again, they're two sides of the same coin, right? Because he also
Batman's bad day of his parents.
Bad day, yeah, it was his parents, and that was something that I thought of right away, right? And so they both suffered a loss, right? And just went in two different directions.
But then the question is sad. Joker refuted by the end of the film? Because Gordon maintains his sanity, so to speak. Right? So is the Joker refuted, or more so it takes the right person, but Batman, you're one of those people.
Yeah.
Like you're the kind of person who...
I think it's all subjective.
And see, if they had leaned into him being fucking crazy in the prologue, it would have melded better.
Who? Just him?
Bruce.
Oh, Bruce. Yeah.
Right. If they leaned, tying it back to the prologue, if they explored Batman, like he's a hard ass.
Yeah.
But they never really explore him being crazy.
Yeah.
Or insane, or
if
just... If
anything, he's, like, very
fucked up.
Reserved and, like,
pragmatic almost.
He's just, like, very much there. Like, it's always, like, Barbara's, like, talking at him. Or, like everyone is just, like, talking at him. And he, like, barely says, like, a single line.
That's another reason why that prologue just feels like it doesn't connect, because that prologue is very much from Barbara's POV. We never really get a sense of what Batman's really thinking or feeling. But then once we move into The Killing Joke, we do. We kind of move into it, right? So it's like, it just feels, it's very disjointed. It's not bad. I think anyone who's saying this is bad is, I think, being a little hyperbolic. But again, this is kind of like what I call the Les Mis problem, where if you've never seen Les Mis the musical, like on stage or listen to it or whatever, and you just watch the movie, the Hugh Jackman movie, its flaws are a little softened because you're experiencing Les Mis the material for the first time, right? Whereas me, I'm very familiar with the material, so when I watch that movie, what I'm really noticing are how it doesn't succeed on film levels, right? Or other ways, right? Yeah. But if you don't know anything, you're just swept up in like, oh my god, Les Mis is incredible.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Right? Well, right? And I think that's kind of an issue. That's kind of something similar here, where it's like, if you are very intimately familiar with The Killing Joke, this is probably a very pitiful experience for you. right? Because it's basically just inferior in almost every way. Yeah. But for you and I, we're getting these interesting ideas. Like, this is the first time we're getting it. We're experiencing the story for the first time in this imperfect vessel.
Yeah.
So I think because of that, I can't speak for you, but I'm maybe willing to give it a little bit more slack than maybe other people would, because I think there's just interesting stuff here. Now, if I read the graphic novel and became really fond of it and then came back to this movie a few years later, maybe I would like this a lot less. Its flaws would be more glaring. Yeah. But as it is, I think it's a interesting... Like, I think it's good. Spoiler, I think it's good.
Yeah, I think...
The animation's decent. It's good to hear Kevin Conroy again. I feel like we haven't heard from him in a while.
It's good and powerful and, you know... Yeah.
How much is it the source material versus the actual movie? Right?
I don't know, but I guess my... just not disdain, but like my kind of apprehension towards it is that it's like disturbing. But I think the fact that it is disturbing makes it good, though, right? Because then it's like evoking a strong emotion.
Not to be kind of callous or sarcastic about it, but I think I've said this on the show before. Like, yeah, you know what else is disturbing? Schindler's List, but it's like a great movie, right? So just because something is disturbing doesn't make it good or bad art. It's, you know, do you find it profoundly, like, does it, you know, do you find it profound in a sense? Like, do you, does it speak to you on a human level? Even if it speaks things to you that are uncomfortable, it's, you know, I think that's the way you measure it, right? Yeah. Which is why I don't understand why you don't like Infinity Wars, because it's sad. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Because it just, I don't know. Because I guess because it just makes me depressed. It's like half the universe is gone. The superheroes, the good guys, they didn't win. They couldn't save us. What are we supposed to do now? How are we supposed to save ourselves? They couldn't save us.
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, someone talking outside.
Sir, please.
Do you want to hear some trivia?
Sure.
Okay. After the release of Batman, Arkham Knight, which was the third game in that Arkham trilogy, not counting Arkham Origins, which was a prequel, which we've established. But I have to say, because I know you do not remember.
Okay.
After release of that game, Mark Hamill said that due to the strain it put on his vocal cords, he would never voice the Joker again unless The Killing Joke was adapted into a film.
What?
And it was.
Oh.
Also, I think he's gone on record being like, basically at a certain point in my career, because like I don't need the money and I'm old, you know, basically when I get called to play the Joker, it really came down to if Kevin was doing it. If they asked me, it didn't really matter what it was. I'd be like, is Kevin doing it? And they would say yes, like, okay, I'm in. And then if not, like, you know, I'm going to pass. Because they developed such a good relationship because, again, we talked about that unlike a lot of animated things, like, especially on TV.
Oh, it was like in person.
They got them in the room together. So they would play off of one another. So they really developed their versions of those characters in tandem. So he, you know, so now that unfortunately, Kevin Conroy's passed away, you probably won't hear Mark Hamill play the Joker probably ever again.
Yeah. I wonder what he did to... How'd he fuck up his vocal cords?
And there's just a demanding role. I haven't played the third one, but I think it's just a demanding role. The Joker's cell number, 0801, is a code in numerology that spells HA! Because H is the 8th letter and A is the first.
Okay.
I thought that was funny.
That's silly.
When Batman brings up the profile of the Joker while in the Batcave, there are multiple references shown in the pictures, which I did notice when we were watching. The fourth image on the top row is a reference to The Dark Knight, where Heath Ledger's Joker is incarcerated by Gotham PD, seen wearing the Heath Ledger-style green waistcoat while hunched over. The fifth image on the top row shows a bleeding dead Robin, a reference to the 88 Batman storyline, A Death in the Family, where the Joker kills the second Robin, Jason Todd. This storyline is told in the DCAU film Under the Red Hood. Okay, we know that. On the second row, third image, there's a picture of the Joker that looks like a revamp of the cover of the 1940s Batman #1, which was the first appearance of the Joker. Also on the first row, second image is a reference to the scene in Tim Burton's Batman '89, where Joker, played by Jack Nicholson, is in a TV commercial introducing the chemical Smilex. So like, there's a little like kind of references to like different movie versions of the Joker, which is like, it's kind of cool. Mark Hamill admitted at a Q&A at Star Wars Celebration in London 2016 that while he wasn't disappointed with the final outcome of the film, he wasn't as completely satisfied as he hoped to be. He also stated he had originally intended and would have preferred to have completed the story as an audiobook, not as a full animated feature.
Huh.
How do you do an audiobook of a comic book?
Same way you do any of them.
Yeah, but you would have to add a lot because in an audiobook you just read the words because the author has written the descriptions. Mm-hmm. But in a comic book, the only writing is like the dialogue and it's all pictures. So does it have to be kind of like when you watch TV with like the assisted listening where it'll be like picks up keys?
No,
like they have to describe it
on a dark, stormy night. They
would need to add. They would need to add a lot to it.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of audiobook, it needs to be like an audio drama. So it's not because audiobook is a direct adaptation.
Oh,
it's like I believe audiobook is like a word for word, whatever it was. Alan Moore declines to be mentioned in film adaptations of his writing, sometimes even denouncing them preemptively, like the Watchmen film from 2009. Accordingly, he does not appear in Killing Joke's credits, even though he wrote the damn thing.
What? Oh my God.
So here's a big chunk about the prologue. According to Bruce Timm, the addition of a 30-minute prologue, it was 30 minutes, came about from himself, co-producer Alan Burnett, and screenwriter Brian Azzarello, all agreeing that the original Killing Joke story was too short to be animated into a full-fledged movie.
Then don't make it.
Then don't make it, or just make it 45 minutes.
Or, make it a little show or whatever.
Yeah, and so they all decided that Batgirl was the obvious choice to expand on to give more of an emphasis on the tragedy of her eventually being shot and paralyzed, which is interesting, but again, they feel so disconnected. This is my own commentary now. This isn't the tribute. It feels so disjointed. It doesn't really feel like a tragedy because it's unrelated completely and it doesn't reinform our understanding of the previous events of the story.
I think if we followed her during that week or whatever, and her last scene wasn't, just leaving Bruce on the roof, then maybe it would have been a little bit more connected. But I think just leaving it like that, and then we don't see her ever again until she's shot, it just makes it like a little random.
Yeah. But in 2016, when the movie was just releasing, Bruce Timm gave interviews with Vulture Online and to a live audience at that year's San Diego Comic-Con, where the movie premiered. He emphasized that he was never a fan of the original Alan Moore story. Then why are you adapting it? He defended the idea of adding in a Batgirl subplot of her being intimate with Batman because of how he always saw them as having sexual chemistry, especially from him watching the Adam West Batman television show as a kid, which I believe when Batgirl was on it, like she was more of like they were more equals.
Yes, the Russian lady, right?
No, that's Catwoman.
Oh. Was she even in those?
No, she wasn't in that movie. She was in the show.
Oh, in the show.
In some episodes,
in the
I think.
Show.
But
okay.
but not in the movie we watched. Yeah, at the time the original comic book was released in 1988, Batman and Barbara Gordon were being written as having a father-daughter relationship, and Bruce Timm admitted to the change of the movie as being, quote, a little risky, ... It's complicated.
What?
So the kind of point is like he's coming at it. This is kind of what makes Batman interesting is because he's been around for like 80 plus years. There's so many different versions that different creators come into it with different ideas of what Batman is or who he is. So you have Bruce Timm coming into it like very much like seeing their sexual chemistry there from like the 60s show. But then like when the original thing was being written in the comics in the late 80s, they were very much being written as like a kind of a father-daughter relationship. But also Bruce Timm, you wrote them as a father-daughter relationship in the Batman animated series. So what are you talking about?
Well, there was that time, I forgot, what was it, when she was at college?
And the mystery of the Batwoman, she's like, I hope you haven't replaced me.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, okay.
So I guess there has been some little something.
But again, the thing comes back to he wasn't very fond of it. Then why? Like it wasn't like they were making this movie no matter what, and then like you were vying for it. Like you decided to make this.
I think him and Alan are just like anything Batman. That's what it seems like, even if they aren't for the story.
I think they just wanted to touch it because it's like one of like the last iconic Batman stories that had yet to be adapted. Not that other ones hadn't been, but that was like probably like the holy grail by that point. Since The Dark Knight Returns had already been covered, a couple years before. Though The Long Halloween is another big one. That's like the one where like Harvey, like it's about the Scarecrow and Harvey's end becoming Two-Face, I believe. But I think they ended up doing an animated one, which we're not going to be watching because it's technically part of a different DC animated movie continuity. We're already watching 38 of these. I figured
so many different universes.
Here's another piece of trivia. When Paris and Mitch, they're like the mobster guys. Paris is the one we mentioned before, Paris Franz.
Oh, yes.
When Paris and Mitch walk down the hallway of his uncle, Francesco's penthouse, he states that Paris's uncle is big into family, even the ones he has made hits on. In the last frame before Paris and Mitch enter his uncle's office, there's a picture on the left wall of a man with his son. The picture is a photo of Thomas Wayne and Bruce. It is presumed that Thomas and Martha Wayne were murdered by Francesco. Which they kind of do a little bit of in the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, if I'm not mistaken. They were killed like in a hit by the mob, if I'm not mistaken.
But I thought that
I haven't seen the movie since it came out. So
wasn't he the guy that Joker went to get in contact with the two goons? I think
in
that
what,
was
this movie?
I think that was a younger him, right? Francesco?
I don't know.
Anyways, I thought it was him, so I was like...
You said maybe there's a way to kind of connect the prologue to that, like, yeah, like maybe like that was Francesco as a younger goon man. Because in the present, he's now like the head of the family.
Yeah.
So
but I liked that little... Well, I didn't like it. I chuckled at that little thing. He's like, oh, he's big into family.
Even the ones he's
made a hit on.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
So this last trivia bit is something that I want to give a little preface to, because we talked about it a little bit off mic when we were watching it.
Yes,
so
yes.
the original comic is very iconic for many reasons that we've described. But one of them is the very last panel when after Joker tells him the killing joke, right?
Which is not funny.
It's fine. It makes sense.
The whole thing led up to that one joke.
The joke is that, well, actually, I'm about to actually make it thematically work, right? So maybe this isn't the point, but remember we were talking about how we come into stories with like certain rules in mind, like of how the world works and what characters can and will do.
Yes.
The point of the joke, so I'll reiterate the joke in case you haven't watched the movie.
I get the...
No, for the listeners.
No, I know.
So basically, Joker tells them a joke. Basically, these two inmates of a insane asylum escape, and they're on the roof, and they're trying to... And they reach like a big kind of gap in between two buildings and whatever, and one of them jumps over, no problem. The other one's too afraid. So the other one's like, oh, I have an idea. And he shines a flashlight like, I'll shine this beam of light. You can walk across the beam. And the other one is like, are you crazy? And you think he's saying that because it's like, you can't walk across the beam of light. But he's like, no, you'll turn it off halfway through. So it's like this idea about like how like crazy people see the world a certain way. Mm-hmm. And like they're blind to like the reality.
Yeah.
And I think that it kind of speaks to what we're talking about, where it's like the idea of like the rules of the world and how like Batman and Joker see the world in a certain way.
It's good.
They're both kind of like, they are the two inmates on the roof. Like they're just two crazy people living in their own world. Mm-hmm. But so here's the trivia bit, right? So after the Joker tells Batman his joke at the end, both Batman, well, in the original comic, so Joker tells him the joke, and it's kind of like an anti-joke, but Batman finds it, and they both start kind of cracking up and laughing, and the final panel is like in silhouette, and it's unclear if Batman's hands are on Joker's shoulders because he's like kind of like bent over laughing, or if he's choking the Joker. Because the whole kind of idea of the story is like Batman's basically like, we need to call a truce. Yeah. Because this is either and I'm going to kill you or you're going to kill me.
Yeah.
If we don't stop right now. So this is the idea. So the comic kind of leaves it ambiguous as to, did Batman kill the Joker? The killing joke, right? So I was very interested to see how they would do it in this. Because again, you can't quite do that, right? Because it's clear, because in a panel, he's frozen. There's no audio. You can't hear him choking, whatever. Right? That'd be really silly. So in this, after the Joker tells Batman his joke at the end, both Batman and the Joker can be seen and heard laughing. The camera pans away just after Batman puts his hands on the Joker's shoulders, and then only Batman's laughter can be heard. So this is left purposely ambiguous and is not clear as to whether Batman kills the Joker or if he lets him live. Right? So I was like, I thought that was actually kind of a clever way to do it in a film. Is you kind of do like a pan away and like you don't hear him like, but like you don't hear him anymore. So it's like, why is it just weird. Batman joke laughing now, right?
I just thought he stopped laughing.
I remember I finished and then the credits rolled. You went, what? It's over?
Well, because like the way he like told the joke, like I didn't get it right away. And then, so then you had to say it, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, why are they laughing? It's not really funny.
Yeah.
And then he stopped laughing, so I was like, oh, maybe he's like taken this opportunity to like take advantage of Bruce or something, or like escape or something. But I guess he was dead.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe not.
We don't know.
I don't know.
Do you want to hear some critical reception?
Sure.
I know you don't like your reception be far too critical. But
Well, hold on. I did want to say something so that we
say it for the record.
So we did skip over a little bit because, like, with calling the truce, right? So he visits what he thinks is him in Arkham.
It's just like another inmate who's dressed up, yeah.
But I think that just speaks to the evolution of our conversations, because I think earlier I would have definitely been talking more about the the sideshow people and how like it's like
Look at that silliness.
It's like horror.
I think about your growth as a film.
American Horror Story freak show, like I don't know, and that like
all of like the circus freaks, which I put in quotes because I'm not trying to be mean, but like that's like the idea.
Well, and then like the rides, right, with Gordon and like seeing all the different pictures of Barbara and stuff like
naked.
That. Naked and bleeding and assaulted. Yeah. But now it's very thematic. So if you came for that, I'm sorry. We're growing up.
Viviana is maturing as a cinephile. I feel like you're becoming a lot more, and I'm like, her boobs were big. I really liked how big her boobs were in this.
You say that every time.
When they stop making her boobs big, I'll stop talking about it.
Well, this is true.
Okay. Do you want to hear some critical reception?
Sure.
So, in terms of the contemporary reaction on Rotten Tomatoes, is at 36%. So not very well liked.
Yikes.
Again, because I think if you're familiar with the story, this is just like a poor adaptation of it. The critical consensus reads, quote, "This stilted retelling of the Joker's origin adds little to its iconic source material, further diminished by some questionable story additions that will have fans demanding justice for Barbara Gordon."
Yes.
Ben Travers of IndieWire commented that, quote, "Instead of humanizing her, the prologue turns Barbara/Batgirl into a comic book cliche, the female character that feigns complexity, but when given an expanded role is only viewed through a sexual lens," end quote. Very true, Ben.
Exactly. Because she was, like, pretty interesting, and then all of a sudden it just changed to,
It took a left turn very quickly.
To her just being obsessed with Bruce.
Yeah.
I was like...
I think wanting his approval.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Tommy Cook of Collider wrote that the prologue, quote, "feels tonally jarring and tacked on haphazardly to the Killing Joke." Couldn't agree more, Tommy, end quote. Because, again, it's not even that it's that bad. Like, all of the issues are true about the prologue, but I don't mind it as much as others. But the problem is like, you just smushed them together.
Yeah.
It's like a salad versus a cake. Right? A cake, you bake them all into this one thing and you can't separate the ingredients anymore. Yes. Whereas you kind of just threw a bunch of shit in a bowl and went like, here you go. And it's like, well, I like strawberries and I like steak, but I wouldn't really want to eat them together necessarily. You know?
You got the good metaphors today.
I've got them coming out of my butt.
Why are they coming out of your butt?
I should probably see a doctor about that.
Probably out of your ear, shouldn't it be?
Many critics and fans agreed the first half of the film was unnecessary and disconnected the second half. Jesse Shadeen of IGN wrote, quote, "The creep factor comes from the fact that Batgirl has such a clearly subordinate relationship to Batman. He's the seasoned veteran and mentor. She's the newbie pupil. Worst of all, none of this opening act has any real bearing on the remainder of the film. Batgirl still comes across as a sacrificial lamb in the end. Her insipid romantic drama adds no weight to her eventual trauma," end quote. I couldn't agree more, Jesse. I'm agreeing with everyone here.
Well, then who's she working for in the end?
I think she ends up becoming kind of like I think she ends up working with Batman, maybe. There is a post-credit scene where she like becomes Oracle, which I don't think was in the original graphic novel. It's supposed to kind of like be like the button that ties it all back together, where it's like, I finally can now be like my own thing, and Bruce can't like now we're really equals, because like he's never been done this before. Like I'm the new,
That was very convoluted, kind of stupid.
In response to criticism of the prologue, Azzarello, who wrote the script, stated, quote, "The thing about this is that it's controversial, so we added more controversy." Like the graphic is already controversial. Yeah. Bruce Timm further added, quote, "We were aware that's a little risky. There's definitely some stuff in that first part of the movie that's going to be controversial. Here's where we came down on that specific issue. It was really important to show us, it was really important to us to show that both of the characters make some pretty big mistakes. I mean, his parental skills aren't that great. Maybe never having had any kids of his own, he doesn't realize that if you tell a kid to not do something, they're going to want to do it even more. And then she makes some mistakes and like sleeping with him. I added that last part. And then he kind of overreacts to her mistakes, and then she overreacts to his overreaction. So it's very human. It's a very understandable story. It's tricky because it's messy, because relationships are sometimes messy. But to me and to Alan and to Brian, it was all very fascinating to us to explore that angle. Again, I'm kind of see where you're coming from.
Which is true.
It's just you just didn't stick the landing.
Just in this context, it's kind of like what they did with Nightwing. It's like, that's very
in the Batman Unlimited movie where it was like 2 seconds of interesting character stuff in
and
the
it was like,
mirror
that's
house.
very interesting, but it is very much does not fit within the context of this story.
Yes, exactly. Gavia Baker Whitelaw of the Daily Dot wrote of the art animation, every scene is recreated with painstaking accuracy, but DC animation style does not measure up to the impact of Brian Bolland's 1980s noir aesthetic.
Go Brian.
Go Brian. It's your birthday. It's your birthday. In terms of the modern reaction, on Letterboxd has a 2.7 out of 5. Here are some reviews, as we're wont to do. Zee writes, "Someone save Barbara Gordon from being degraded for the sake of the plot."
Yes.
I couldn't agree more, Z.
But would it someone save from being degraded for the sake? Oh, yes.
Like she's basically like that reviewer was. She's basically just a sacrificial lamb to get the plot moving, right? Yeah. Amanda the Jedi. Oh, may the Force be with you. Amanda the Jedi wrote, "Who the hell thought the stuff with Barbara was a good idea? You guys literally had everything you needed to do this right, and some weirdo perv got a hold of it." Again, I think that really captured, Amanda, great comment, because I think that captures probably the prevailing sentiment of fans, where it's like, it's one of the most iconic, like, you just do the story.
Yeah.
Like, it's already great. You don't need to add anything. If you're gonna add stuff, flesh out what's there. Don't just like add extra.
Yeah. Show I don't even know what his name is. What's his name? What's Joker's name?
I forget.
Did they say?
They did. I don't think they did say his name.
Or whatever. But show Joker.
Did they? Hold on.
Bombing at the comedy club, or getting rejected, or he steps in a puddle, and whatever. Just there's just like little things that you can add in to kind of flesh it out and make it a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
To support and
flesh out what's there.
Yeah, support and reiterate what you're already saying. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho.
Cobra Rocky writes,
What?
"Maybe the most famous Batman and Joker story is now overshadowed by Bruce nailing Babs on a roof and her acting like a needy teenager. Good job, guys." These are some good Letterboxd reviews. Good job. A little round of applause for you guys.
These are some very astute people. Yeah, because that very silly. Very silly.
Okay, favorite part. Seeing character actor line.
Ugh. I don't know.
Dude, come on. You know.
I don't know. I guess Barbara.
She did have pretty big boobs. We did establish that.
Not about her boobs.
Not about her boobs. Good sir.
I don't know. I think also I was a little surprised by, but also kind of respected Bruce's attempt to call a truce.
Like he said, "I'm trying to help you. Yeah. Like I could try to rehabilitate you," and the Joker's kind of like, "It's too late for me." Like there's like a very brief moment of good faith between the two of them. Mm-hmm. Even the Joker, which I don't think I've ever seen. Yeah. Kind of like a resigned, like almost melancholic kind of.
In Arkham, at first, not with the Joker.
Well, I'm talking about the Joker specifically.
But then also with the Joker later on, yeah.
But seeing the Joker also kind of be honest. Mm-hmm. And not like in a sick, twisted way. He's just like, "No, it's too late for me." And like...
Yeah.
I think that's the first and only time I've ever seen the Joker be like an actual human for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
When at least when he is the Joker, not like pre-Joker.
Yeah.
When he's just like a normal dude. I'm talking about like when he is the Joker, right? Yeah, I kind of forgot about that part.
I like that genuity about it. What? Genuity, right? Genuinity?
I don't know, genuine.
The genuineness.
'Cause ingenuity is almost more like cleverness.
Yeah, so the genuity of that situation, because it kind of mirrors like his weird relationship. Well, here we go. Okay,
Here we go.
here is a connection, right? It kind of mirrors his weird relationship with Barbara.
I said that earlier.
I know. Oh, I'm just now understanding. But, this one, he's actually, like, being active in it and not just, like, standing there. He's like, okay,
So maybe he's
this
like
is
learned
unhealthy.
the lessons from the situation with Barbara, where it's like,
Maybe, yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
this is unhealthy.
Yeah.
Like, let's try to figure this out. And he's like, it's too late. Like, you learn the lesson too late.
yeah,
So I like that. I thought that was interesting, and then also I actually really like the flashbacks and learning more about the Joker, even though I hate the Joker now
Yeah.
for being a sexual creeper.
yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was interesting in the whole like one bad day away situation,
And that he then realizes like life is just a joke. Like that's why he's like he doesn't just become crazy now. He's gonna be a clown. Like that specifically ties into the theme, like where he's basically like life is just a joke,
Yeah.
a sick joke,
Yeah.
right? And tragedy is the punchline, right?
Yeah. Because he's because he's trying, and he's like, shit, I know I'm a failure. Like I know I could do better. Like I'm trying, and I want to do better for myself, but also for you, my wife, and for my unborn child, And he's like, I'm really trying, but it's just like not working. And then
I'm just not funny.
And then it just.
But though she was like, you are pretty funny. You're good in the sack.
That was funny.
I think that's you and me. I'm gonna be like, well, why do you think oh, you're funny.
But
not the sack part. I don't have a penis.
We're like Barbie dolls.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have genitals.
But oh my gosh. But no, yeah, I liked that building of empathy. Even though like there's no empathy now, it's like you've done too much to kind of like
the point is that anyone can become the Joker.
Yeah.
That he was not a uniquely
it's like he's gone
evil
too
person
far
before.
Now, but it's like, yeah, it's like, okay, what does drive someone to be, what do they call him? A diabolical maniac or something?
Horrible tragedy and toxic chemicals.
Yeah, what the fuck did he fall into?
I don't know. I've never understood. I feel like anything that's actually you just die.
You would just simply die,
or just drown, even if it was just water. You just drown.
Well, because he was in the drain pipe. So unless there's like a small pocket of air, when are you breathing?
Yeah.
Anywho, but
yeah.
So the peoples, I suppose.
Is it cheating if I say my favorite part is everything after the prologue? Just the killing joke. I mean, no, but all joking aside, like I think my favorite part is just like the idea. This is kind of broad and it is kind of cheating. The ideas of the source material. Right. Again, I think that's what makes this film better. Or in my eyes, I like it more than a 2.7 out of 5. Or like what other people have kind of come down on this movie about, or how they've come down on this movie. Though again, since this is like my first introduction, really, not to these ideas, but just this material. I found it. I found it compelling. I wouldn't say sublime, but I did find it compelling. Okay, Viviana, 1 to 10. What are you gonna give this? I have already copied it for you, so I can put it in the ranking.
I think.
What are you gonna give it 1 to 10?
I'm gonna give it a 7.
Okay, 7.
And I think I'm gonna put it maybe on the bottom of the 7s.
The bottom of the 7. So worse than the Batman Unlimited movies?
Yes, but mainly just because it doesn't sit well with me.
That's fair. Okay. So out of 26 films, this is your 16th.
Yeah, because
Out of
like
26.
I know it's good. It's just like not. It's kind of like with Raging Bull. Like I know it's a very famous and popular movie, but I had to stop watching it halfway through because I was getting triggered. So
Yeah.
it's something like that.
I'm gonna probably regret. So I'm gonna give it a 7.
Okay.
That's not what I regret. But in terms of where to place it, I feel like doing these rankings when there's so many movies at a certain point starts to be like not accurate because you kind of like forget how you really felt about a movie. Like you might like it more in memory or dislike it more than how you actually felt when you watched it. So
Should we write little notes so you don't forget?
no, I mean the episodes are our notes. But that being said, I'm gonna give it a 7. So let's see here. So do I like it more than Mystery of the Batwoman? Yes. Gotham Knight? Yes. Adam West Batman? Probably, because again, it's more intellectually interesting. Batman Beyond the movie? Probably. The 2 Dark Knight Returns movies? Probably, because I have some strength, because that story can be kind of weird. I don't like the way it ends, with him going like underground.
Yeah. To be a mole man.
The Dark Knight Rises, half of it's great and half of it's okay. And since it's almost 3 hours long, Killing Joke I think is better because it's like a nice short watch. Batman Year One, no. Yeah, I'm gonna put it below year. So I actually kind of this is my top 5.
Yeah, what is that, 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 exactly.
I think solely off of the ideas. Now, like I said, if I were to read it and then come back to this movie, I'd probably be like, oh shit, this fucking sucks. But for that alone, it's getting a top 5 for me so far.
Yeah.
But there's still about 12 more movies we gotta watch. One of them I know is gonna be, but the Robert Pattinson one I already know is gonna be up there pretty high. But who knows? We might get surprised by some of these other ones. Again, I did not expect my top 10 to include Year One and The Killing Joke.
Are we watching Joker?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
I think.
Yeah, what's mine? Dark Knight Rises, Batman Begins.
Yeah, so why don't we read our top 5? So my top 5.
Monster Mayhem.
Yeah, my top 5 from 5 to 1 is The Killing Joke, Year One, Mask of the Phantasm, Batman Begins, and The Dark Knight. Why don't you read your top 5 for us?
My top 5, starting from 5, is The Dark Knight.
Okay, that makes sense to be the top 5. I'm sure the next one is going to be even better, yeah?
Monster Mayhem.
Mayhem! Not Mayhem!
Oh, Mayhem.
Batman Unlimited, Monster Mayhem.
The Dark Knight Returns Part 2, Batman Begins, and The Dark Knight Rises.
We have a very strange... But again, I have The Killing Joke in my top 5, so I'm not immune from strange... But I think mine's a little bit more justifiable.
Hey,
Batman Unlimited, Monster Man. You're just like, oh, the monster is so cool.
I like the monsters. What?
Okay, it's time to we gotta go watch Watchmen. So that's it for this week's episode of Now That's What I Call a Franchise.
I gotta do my homework.
You can get homework. Next week we'll be watching the next film in the franchise, the 2016 film Batman Unlimited, Mechs vs. Mutants, which I'm sure will be Viviana's other favorite film. Viviana, where can they find us?
You guys can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Franchise Podcast.
We know you have many podcasting options, and we thank you for choosing us. Peace out, guys.
Bye. Later, haters.